The echo should have carried. In these mountains, it always did. Granite slabs stacked and broken by time formed a natural amplifier, sharp edges and narrow gaps that caught sound and threw it outward. A single call could bounce across the slope, return softened, then disappear into distance. For a Pika, that echo mattered. It confirmed space. It warned of movement. It told the animal where it stood in relation to danger. Today, the sound stopped close. The Pika crouched low among the granite slabs, its small body pressed into a crevice where cold stone met colder air. It was compact and round, built to conserve heat, with dense grey-brown fur that matched the rock almost too well. Its ears, usually upright and alert, were angled slightly back, listening not just for noise, but for absence. Above, the slope rose steeply, fractured into angular blocks the size of carts and cabins. Below, it dropped away toward alpine meadow and thin, wind-bent grasses. This was a place of edges, where sound normally travelled cleanly and far. The Pika opened its mouth and released a short call. The sound left its body sharply, exactly as expected. It did not come back. No reflection, no faint return, no confirmation. The Pika froze instantly, mouth closing, body compressing further into the rock. Its heart rate increased, not from panic, but from recalibration. A call without echo was not silence. It was missing information. Wind should have carried the sound if rock did not. But the air was strangely layered. Cold air clung low to the slope while slightly warmer air rested above it, unmoving. This inversion flattened movement. Sound rose briefly, then stalled, absorbed instead of reflected. The Pika did not understand atmospheric physics. It understood loss of reach. This individual had lived its entire short life among these slabs. It knew the distances between cover points, the angles that threw sound farther, the spots where predators were usually announced by dislodged stones or reflected noise. Its alarm calls were precise, economical, tuned to terrain. Now, the terrain refused to answer. The Pika shifted slightly, claws gripping stone. Tiny fragments of gravel loosened beneath its feet, but even that sound seemed muted, swallowed immediately by the rock and air. That was wrong. Normally, even the smallest movement here triggered a cascade. Pebble to pebble, sound skipping downslope, announcing motion to everything listening. That was how Pikas stayed alive, by making the mountains speak for them. Today, the mountains stayed quiet. The Pika edged forward just enough to peer out from the crevice. Sunlight struck the granite at a low angle, warming the surface unevenly. Shadows lay sharp and unmoving. There was no wind strong enough to stir grass or send sound sideways. Farther upslope, another Pika should have answered the call. There was none. Either no one had heard, or no one had responded. Both were dangerous. Pikas relied on shared vigilance. One call carried far, another answered, and the network held. Without echo, without response, each individual became smaller, more isolated. The Pika retreated deeper into the crevice, pressing its back against stone that still held winter cold. It listened again. Nothing. No bird wings cutting air. No shifting rocks. No distant echo. Only its own breathing, faint and fast. This was not the loud silence of snow or storm. It was a compressed quiet, sound present but trapped, unable to travel. A silence that shortened awareness and shrank the usable world. The Pika remained hidden, muscles taut, waiting not for danger itself, but for proof that the mountain could still communicate. The echo did not return. And among the granite slabs, where sound had always been a tool, the Pika learned, without understanding why, that even the landscape could withhold information, leaving survival to depend on what could be sensed at the smallest possible scale. The Pika stayed hidden longer than usual. Normally, waiting had a rhythm, a call, an echo, a pause, another sound somewhere upslope, confirmation that the space between stones was still shared, still watched. That rhythm allowed movement, short dashes between slabs, quick foraging runs, the careful gathering of grasses for later. Now, waiting had no structure. The Pika remained pressed into the crevice, body flattened, paws tucked close to its chest to conserve heat. Granite held the cold of the night deep within it, and even in sunlight the stone released warmth slowly. The Pika's fur insulated well, but stillness always carried a cost. It lifted its head slightly and listened again. Sound existed, but only nearby. A faint scrape as a lichen fragment loosened. The barely audible movement of air between rocks. Its own heartbeat, faster now, loud in its chest. None of it travelled. This was the problem. Predators did not need echoes. They needed proximity. Hawks relied on sight and sudden descent. Weasels and martens moved low and silently, using gaps in stone the Pika could not outrun in close quarters. Echo was the early warning system. Without it, danger arrived already near. The Pika shifted its weight, inching forward until its nose reached the edge of the crevice. Whiskers brushed open air. It paused, testing. No response. Carefully, it stepped out onto the slab. Its movements were quick but controlled. A burst of speed over less than a meter, then immediate stillness. The Pika froze again, body upright now, ears forward, scanning both above and below. The slope looked the same. Granite blocks lay stacked at familiar angles. Thin grasses grew in cracks where soil collected. Sunlight lit one side of each stone while shadows pooled sharply behind them. Visually, nothing had changed, but the scale had. Without echo, the Pika could not measure how far danger might be. A hawk could already be overhead. A predator could be moving behind a rock only meters away. The safe radius, once defined by sound, had shrunk to the immediate area around its body. The Pika darted again, this time toward a patch of alpine grass wedged between two slabs. It reached the plants, tore several stems free with rapid bites, and retreated immediately to cover. The entire foraging run lasted seconds. Inside the crevice, the Pika chewed quickly, swallowing without pause. Normally, it would carry grasses to a hay pile, a carefully built cache hidden beneath rocks, essential for winter survival. Today, it did not. Leaving cover for too long was too costly. This was how conditions became dangerous without appearing so, not through immediate threat, but through compression. When the usable world shrank, every task required more risk. The Pika listened again, still no echo. It released another call, shorter this time, quieter. The sound died almost immediately. No answer followed. That absence was heavier than silence. It meant either others could not hear, or were also hiding, unwilling to reveal themselves. Either way, coordination was broken. The Pika's body responded with tension. Muscles remained partially engaged even while still. Breathing stayed shallow. Energy burned without movement. Cold began to seep deeper. Pikas lived close to thermal limits. Their compact bodies retained heat well, but stress altered that balance. Stillness without reassurance became draining. Normally, movement was timed to conditions. Brief bursts followed by rest, guided by sound. Now, rest offered no safety. The Pika shifted again, deeper into the crevice, where stone closed in tightly around its sides. Here, sound mattered less. The world reduced to touch, scent, and immediate sight. Above, the air remained layered and still. No wind arrived to stir grasses or carry sound sideways. The inversion held firm, pressing silence into the rocks. Time passed without cues. Eventually, the Pika would have to choose. To forage despite uncertainty, or conserve energy and risk falling behind the narrow margins of survival. Neither option was good. Both were shaped by a mountain that refused to speak. The Pika stayed hidden among the granite slabs, aware now that distance itself had collapsed, not physically, but functionally, and that without echo, the world had grown dangerously small. As the sun climbed higher, the silence did not lift. In most alpine mornings, warmth loosened the slope gradually. Air began to move uphill, pulling sound with it. Echoes stretched farther. Loose stones betrayed distant movement. The mountain woke in layers, and the Pika timed its life to that slow opening. This morning, the layers stayed locked. The Pika remained in the crevice long past the point when it would normally be active. Its body was warm enough for now, but the margin was thinning. Energy stored overnight was meant to be spent early, gathering, carrying, building reserves before heat or predators forced retreat. Instead, energy leaked away through tension. The Pika shifted position again, turning slightly so one flank pressed against colder stone while the other caught a thin strip of sunlight. This helped regulate body temperature, but it was an imperfect balance. Stillness cooled the muscles faster than expected. A faint shadow passed high above. The Pika flattened instantly, every muscle contracting, its ears pinned back. Eyes tracked upward, searching the sharp blue between stone edges. Nothing followed. No wing sound, no echo of air displaced, no secondary cue. In normal conditions, even a passing cloud or bird cast a layered response, visual first, then sound, then reflection. Here, events arrived singly, stripped of context. The Pika had to assume worst-case distance every time. That assumption was expensive. It rose again slowly, posture low and compressed, minimizing profile. Its head moved in small arcs, scanning gaps between rocks where predators could appear suddenly. The granite slabs themselves felt different. Usually, they were communicative. A dislodged pebble high on the slope would send sound cascading downward, warning everything below. Now, small stones shifted without consequence. Gravel slid a few centimeters and stopped, sound dying almost immediately. The mountain absorbed motion. This absorption made hiding easier, but also made detection harder. For predators and prey alike, the slope had become opaque. The Pika edged out again, committing to a longer movement this time. It crossed an exposed slab in 2 rapid bounds, claws scraping stone, then ducked beneath an overhang. Still no echo. It paused there, breathing fast, then steadied itself. From this position, it could see a larger section of slope. No movement, no answering calls, no reassurance. The Pika released another call, louder than before. The sound travelled only a short distance, flattening quickly as if pressed down by the air itself. No response. The absence was no longer ambiguous, it was persistent. That persistence forced a change in behaviour. The Pika abandoned the idea of moving farther upslope toward shared hay piles. Instead, it focused on what could be reached within a few body lengths, small plants growing directly between stones, thin grasses clinging to shaded cracks. It made several short forays, each one brief, each followed by immediate retreat. The food gathered was minimal and poorly suited for storage, but it was enough to slow energy loss. This was survival at reduced scale. The Pika's world had contracted to a cluster of rocks no larger than a few meters across. Beyond that boundary, information could not be trusted. Distance existed physically, but not perceptually. Above, the air remained layered and motionless. Warmth increased slightly, but without vertical movement. The inversion persisted, holding sound close to its source, preventing it from climbing or bouncing. As afternoon approached, the Pika's movements slowed. Not from exhaustion yet, but from calculation. Every dash, every call, every pause was weighed more heavily than usual. The mountain still did not answer. Echo, once a partner, had become unreliable. The Pika adjusted not by panic, but by narrowing its life, reducing exposure, conserving what little certainty remained. Among the granite slabs, where sound had once stitched space together, the Pika survived now by shrinking its world to what could be seen, touched, and trusted. And in that reduced world, it waited, alert, compressed, alive, for the moment when the mountain might remember how to speak again. The change began so quietly that it almost went unnoticed. The Pika was deep in the crevice, pressed against stone, chewing slowly on the last thin stems it had gathered. Its movements were small now, economical. The day had taught it restraint. The mountain had offered no reassurance, and the Pika had learned to survive without expecting any. Then something shifted. Not sound, not yet, but air. A faint movement brushed across the opening of the crevice, cool against the whiskers. It was subtle, uneven, the kind of change that would have been meaningless earlier. Now it mattered. The Pika stopped chewing. Its ears lifted, rotating forward, then outward. The air moved again, this time sliding up slope instead of pressing downward. The layered stillness that had trapped sound all day began to loosen, fraction by fraction. Above the slabs, grass tips stirred, just slightly. The Pika leaned forward and released a short call, cautious, not loud. This time, the sound did not die immediately. It travelled a little farther than before, thinning as it went, but not vanishing outright. It did not return as a full echo, but something came back, a faint, distorted fragment, more felt than heard. The Pika froze. That fragment was enough. Distance had not fully returned, but it had stretched. The world was no longer compressed into a few meters of stone. Space was opening again, cautiously, unevenly. A pebble shifted somewhere upslope. The sound reached the Pika a moment later, weak, delayed, but real. Its body reacted instantly. Posture lifted, muscles loosened slightly, shifting from constant tension to readiness. This was the posture of an animal that could once again afford to listen outward, not just inward. The Pika moved out of the crevice and onto the slab, standing upright now, chest lifted. It scanned the slope, eyes alert, ears wide. The mountain looked unchanged, but it felt different, less closed, less absorbing. Another call rang out. This one carried farther. And this time, from somewhere beyond the immediate rocks, a response arrived. Faint, high, unmistakable. Another Pika. The sound was distant and distorted, but it existed. That mattered more than clarity. It meant the network had not vanished, only been muted. The Pika answered again, shorter, sharper. The exchange did not continue long. The air was still unstable. Sound carried unevenly, breaking apart as it travelled. But the possibility of connection had returned. That was enough to change behaviour. The Pika moved farther from its crevice now, crossing 2 slabs instead of 1, then pausing to listen. It gathered a small bundle of grass and carried it not back to its hiding place, but toward a familiar cache site nearby. Not the main hay pile, but a secondary one. This was a test. The mountain responded inconsistently. Some sounds travelled, others vanished. Echo returned in fragments, not a full voice, but syllables. Still, fragments were better than nothing. As the afternoon light shifted, upslope air continued to move. The inversion weakened, breaking apart slowly rather than collapsing all at once. With it, sound regained some of its reach. The Pika did not rush. Experience had taught caution. The mountain could close again. Silence could return just as easily. So it worked carefully, extending its range only as far as information allowed. By evening, the echo still was not what it had been, but it was no longer absent. And among the granite slabs, the Pika settled again into its crevice, not hiding now, but resting, aware that the mountain had begun, imperfectly, to speak again. Not clearly, not reliably, but enough. Enough for survival to stretch back outward, one sound at a time,